Welcome to the Holistic Show.
I'm Lloyd Bryant.
And I'm Danielle Bryant. Today we're going to be talking about magnesium. We're going to dedicate a whole show to magnesium because we feel it's so important based on our research and also our evidence from doing hair tests, which I'm going to share with you. So, as a nutritional therapist, and as you know from the other shows, I perform hair mineral tests, and magnesium is showing up on every test really as being deficient. Many cases severely deficient, and so it's kind of like become a bit of an epidemic. So in the meantime, you were reading this book, weren't you?
Yeah, it's Transdermal Magnesium Therapy by Dr. Mark Serkis. And what the book is mainly about is the efficacy of taking transdermal magnesium, that is through the skin, as opposed to oral supplementation. It goes into a lot of other things about it as well, but that's the essence of this book compared to other books on magnesium, and he's a bit of a pioneer in that regard. So I'll just quote one little thing off the back of here. When we are deficient in magnesium, over 300 enzymes in our body are unable to function properly. So that's also what you found in your research, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of puts it all in a nutshell, really, how important magnesium is. If 300 functions of our body over 300 functions of our body cannot process without it, then it makes it an extremely essential mineral. And in fact, some people actually call it the master mineral, don't they?
Right, yeah. So what we're going to focus on today is the calcium-magnesium ratio, which Dr. Serkis quite rightly says is so important. Not to say that other minerals that interact with magnesium aren't also important, but we can show clearly from the hair test results this ratio and how it works and how important it is, can't we?
Yeah, yeah. And it also causes the most life-threatening symptoms, doesn't it, you know? So which we will go into. But first I'll just explain, just in very, very simple terms, and it's not really scientifically accurate, but it's just to give an idea of how important or how the ratios of between things work in the body. So if you imagine like a calcium molecule, and it needs magnesium, like in the diagram, to hold its hand, to take it away to be processed. And Scott Tips used to say it was like a traffic cop to the calcium to show it where to go. So without it, the calcium would just be wandering around. So looking at the graphic, if you're getting upwards of 7, 8 to 1, then there's going to be excess calcium without magnesium to bind to it. And that's going to just be wandering around aimlessly, and it can cause calcification of the blood vessels, which is a huge problem, and it's a bigger problem than cholesterol, is being quoted as well. And it also causes calcium deficiency, because even though you've got loads of calcium in your body, it's not where it should be, so you're actually deficient in the calcium where it should be. And circulation, heart problems, and things like stroke, heart attack, all that sort of thing, relaxation problems, tension in the muscles, cramps, sleep problems as well.
Yeah, basically magnesium is regarded as a relaxing mineral, so it allows the muscles to relax, allows the body to relax, doesn't it? So, you know, insomnia could be magnesium related, headaches and things like that, because it's just not relaxing, you know. So
it's sort of the first thing we say when somebody comes to us and says, "Oh, I got this wrong, what can you recommend?" First of all, we say, try magnesium. If that doesn't work, come back. Because and skin problems as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, something that's happened in our family is when your grandfather went in with a stroke into hospital, and I was chatting to the doctor there, and I said, could it be a contributing factor that if he's deficient in magnesium to cause the stroke? And the doctor said, oh yes, that could be a contributing factor. Certainly magnesium deficiency can, you know, he was aware that magnesium deficiency could cause that or contribute to it. I said, oh, so are you going to test for it then? No. So
that's crazy, isn't it?
So it was, you know.
But then their tests don't show
No, as you said on the other show.
Yeah, because our bodies keep 1% of magnesium in the blood at all times. So, well, as much as possible. So, it doesn't give a true representation of the magnesium's overall magnesium levels in the body. It's just what's in the blood. So I've got here a graph which we'll put up on screen now. So we've got the levels. This is a random selection of 40 hair tests. So at the top you've got the levels of calcium, and then the graph down in blue shows the levels of magnesium. As we discussed in the other show, if you've seen the show on hair mineral tests, the levels are not as important as the ratios between them. So we've got on the bottom graph here, we've got the ratios. Now the first few are family, ourselves. Yeah. So we're pretty good, there's one that could do with improving. We've got the next one is a client who has come back for a retest. So you've got the level that the client was, and I would like to say as well that this client was taking magnesium supplements.
Okay.
And yet there was still like 40 to over 40 to 1 ratio. And then when switching on my advice then to magnesium chloride in the bath, as we're going to explain, the ratio dropped next time that they came back. It was less than a year later. It was probably, I think it might have been about 8 months, if I remember rightly. And the ratio had dropped to less than half.
So they're the ones in red then?
Yeah. So then the yellow is another hair test client who came back for 2 retests. You can see the levels sort of come in down into
the ratios technically, isn't it? The ratios is coming more into
the ratios
towards the desired level. Yeah.
And then the others are just a sort of random selection of anonymous sort of results that shows this sort of widespread deficiency problem, because as you can see by the lines, there's the two lines on here being the official recommended ratio and the optimum recommended ratio as the research has shown. And in that sense, everybody is deficient in magnesium to bring the ratio down. And we left the one out that was 103 to 1.
Because it puts the graph out of scale.
Yeah. So that just gives an idea of the scale of deficiency that we're looking at across. And these are people who are already customers or clients, so they're already sort of on the path of looking after their health naturally. And many of them taking supplements or bathing in Epsom salts, thinking that they're supplementing with magnesium that way, which is another thing we're going to discuss later. So.
Yeah, I mean, just missed out. You said the first few were in orange, S, but the very first 2 are U. So we were already at a decent level with the very first little bar there, but on the second one, the ratio came down to about 1.5. So that's like bang in the ideal ratio. Really, that's what we think that the ideal ratio should be, and as you can see,
and that was only taking magnesium in the bath. That's how I did it.
Yeah, there was no other supplementation.
But I think that we're quite good anyway, because so many things will deplete magnesium, such as pesticides and herbicides in food, and stress upon the body when you're sort of eating things that your body can't tolerate. Things like all the nasty things in our foods and processed foods and aspartame and fluoride and things like that. We've already sort of, we'd been cutting that out for a long time. So our bodies weren't under as much stress maybe as others who are not cutting those things out from their diet and, eating organically and processed foods. So that's probably why our levels were quite good as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It all goes into it, doesn't it? So now we know the importance of magnesium and why pretty much most of us should be taking it, and especially if you have experiencing regularly any of the symptoms that we've mentioned, then we need to look at how to take it, and also it's not just important that we take magnesium or something called magnesium, it's also important to get the right form, isn't it, which you've discovered.
So, I mean, I did a bit of research on magnesium supplements around the time I was reading Dr. Circus's book, and there are a few forms of supplements out there, different forms of magnesium, citrate, chloride, you can get supplements with magnesium oxide in even, but they're probably the worst end of the scale because it's not very bioavailable. But all of them, to some extent or another, only a percentage of those will be assimilated really into magnesium by the body. So trying to basically supplement orally with any type of supplement that I've read about, only a percentage, somewhere around 30-40% of the magnesium in those supplements is really going to get absorbed into the system, and you can't just take loads of it and expect to absorb more, because then you're going to get digestive upset with it. I mean, in fact, Epsom salts and magnesium chloride, with Epsom salts being magnesium sulfate, both those forms are actually purposely taken to give a bit of a detox and a clear out, you know. They can help to purge the liver a little bit and to clear your system out and for various digestive conditions. So they can purposely be used for that, but in that sense they're actually causing your body to
an unfavourable symptom, really.
An unfavourable symptom, but you're not necessarily boosting the magnesium levels that great with them anyway. So
what we're focusing on is the actual levels, raising the levels, which we have found to be a really important thing. We're not putting down other forms that can be used in other ways, and can be used for the things like you say, you know. Our intention here is to say how it's best to raise your magnesium levels.
Some may even choose to supplement orally alongside transdermal. That's entirely their choice, and you might get a slight extra boost because of that, but we haven't found the need, and you can see the results for yourself that the just transdermal is plenty for, well, everyone. I can't think of an exception, really. So
the form of magnesium that our body uses is magnesium chloride. So any other type, in order for our levels to increase, has to be processed by the body, and processing by the body will use up magnesium, so it's kind of, you know, you're not going to get as much as you put in.
Yeah,
you know?
So it's magnesium chloride is a salt, and it's part of your body salt makeup. So that's how your body sort of stores it effectively. So, you know, but we can't just take loads of magnesium chloride orally, because, like I said, it's got to go through your digestive system, and it won't tolerate it.
And so when we take the magnesium chloride in through our skin, it goes straight into the tissues where it's needed, and it doesn't have to be processed, it's just straight there. And the beauty of it is that it's extremely difficult to take too much. You know, you'd have to be taking like kilos every week for years, you know, to get too much, really, I would say.
I think it's quite difficult to quantify, but I think the more deficient someone is in magnesium,
the more
you can imagine it is more like a sponge, and it's going to suck in this lovely magnesium in as much as it can, whereas a little bit like osmosis is if it's already got plenty of magnesium, it's not going to be such a sponge, it's not going to soak up quite so much. So I think over a period of time it will level out, but obviously if you haven't got any symptoms, then you can ease off on your magnesium transdermal supplementation
once
anyway.
Symptoms of deficiency have sort of passed, then you can just sort of cut it down to like maybe a weekly bath or something, you know. So we found magnesium chloride is the best way to raise your magnesium levels. So what sort of research did you do to find the best source?
So I looked at the types that's available. Dr. Circus in his book recommends a Zechstein source of magnesium, which is an underground sea rich in magnesium, and because it's underground, it's very little pollution, so that's an excellent source with high purity. He also mentions about Dead Sea origin, which is the one I found to be a little bit cheaper than the Zechstein and very easily available. It's extracted from the Dead Sea, which of course is renowned for its own healing properties, and purified. and you end up with a magnesium flakes which is basically indistinguishable to look at from the Zechstein source. There are a few other sources I'll just mention, because the magnesium chloride can be extracted using chemical processes. So there's a hydrochloric acid process, and there's other synthetic processes for extracting the magnesium chloride from various compounds. And there's also other sources of it elsewhere in the world. For example, there's some salt lake sources in America, but they tend to be heavily polluted. And like the manufactured forms of magnesium chloride, they've got high contaminant levels in there. We're talking heavy metals and that. So excluding those, just a brief comparison between the Zechstein and the Dead Sea origin. There's very little difference. To give an idea of the purity, we're talking of the heavy metals, it's a fraction of a part per million, and the iron level, which isn't a heavy metal toxin, which is actually essential mineral, is 10 parts maximum on the Dead Sea origin, and it's just over 5 parts per million on the Zechstein source. So
we can use that iron anyway, though, can't we?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, iron is an essential mineral. Also, the zinc level is slightly lower with it, but these are essential minerals. It's literally the heavy metal.
That's the bit that we could be concerned with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Contamination rather than any other essential minerals that may be given with it.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, we'd rather have the cheaper source when there's hardly any difference.
Yeah.
And make it more freely available. Because it means we can sell it for a lot cheaper, and it won't run short, sort of thing. So we've concluded that magnesium chloride transdermally is the best way to get our magnesium levels up. So let's look at how to use it.
Okay, we'll put a little graphic up, which is as simply as putting a couple of generous handfuls of magnesium chloride flakes into the bath. And ideally do this when you've got hot running water going in, and maybe give them a bit of a swish to help them dissolve. Just take a minute or so for them to dissolve usually. We'll also just show in the clip what we normally do, and this is one of the things that Dr. Serkis also recommends in his book, is to also put a generous scoop of sodium bicarbonate in there, which has got additional relaxing properties, and it's there's various benefits to that, as many people regard it for alkalizing the system as well. So we'd also recommend that.
Makes your skin lovely and soft. And
lovely,
really,
yeah.
Really nice. Yeah.
Wouldn't be great for washing your hair in that bath though.
Get greasy more quickly.
So maybe you'll wash your hair after that, using a shower head or something if you've got one. So that's how we use it in the bath, and enjoy the bath, and that's lovely. You can also use it in a foot bath, so you maybe put a generous handful in a foot bath, soak your feet in there for 20 minutes. That's always relaxing.
Yeah, it takes about 15-20 minutes for the body to take what it needs.
Kind of gets saturated then after that time.
After that, it'll stop absorbing. So if you're going to have a bath, just have at least quarter of an hour in the bath for optimum results, I'd say.
Yeah. And of course the other way, which is by far the most economical, is to make it into an oil.
But you'd need to do that daily, wouldn't you? Because it's not quite so...
I think you're only going to get a couple of grams of oil on your skin if you're only doing your arms, maybe a few grams more if you're going to put over a larger area of your body.
But obviously when you're in the bath,
you've got hundreds of grams in there, so you're saturating really as much as your skin can take.
So it is by far the best way, but this is a great way for convenience, and if you haven't got a bath.
Yeah, if you haven't got a bath especially, that's a good way. So we're going to do a little demonstration in a minute to show you how simple it is and how cost effective it is to make your own.
Okay, so let's clear the decks so we can make some magnesium oil. There you go, there's magnesium flakes. This is 1 kilo, just to give you an idea of cost. This is a 1 kilo tub.
They're about £7.50 or so, but if you buy larger tubs, then the price comes down
Yeah,
relatively per kilo.
Up to like 25 kilo sack. So, you know, it depends how you're going to use it.
One just brief thing to mention, actually, the reason we do them in tubs like this, you can get other sources, and they do them in resealable sort of bags, but we don't rate them very highly, because if they don't seal very well, it will actually attract moisture from the air.
Really badly as well, and it goes all sticky, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes like sort of like slushy and that, and so
even if you just leave this unsealed, you know, it'll just fill with overnight, won't it?
So get a sauce with a good seal on it, basically, we're saying.
Yeah.
So let's make some oil.
Okay, so first of all, there's no need to be technical and measure and everything like that. I'll try and do this a bit quicker, although I'll probably make a mess. So just fill. Sorry, you can clear up after me. Usually the other way round, so you can clear up after me this time. That's probably about enough. We can just do it with that amount. Okay. You're not doing a very good job of clearing up here. So we're just adding, this is just spring water. And just add about up to the level, the same level. You can give it a stir.
Give that a bit. So the purpose of this is to get all of these flakes dissolved. I just need to add a drop more water.
Okay.
Tiny bit more.
Basically just keeping on adding water until there are no flakes left, so they've all dissolved.
Yeah, just give them a chance to dissolve first though. And what we'll end up with is effectively a maximum strength magnesium oil. So just at the point where the flakes are all dissolved. And if you do need to dilute it further, then you know that is your starting point. I mean, we could just put loads of water in here and have a dilute oil to start. It's called oil, it's not technically an oil. So we've got very few flakes in here now. It's about the right proportion. If you do add too much water, you could always just put a few more flakes in to sort of strengthen it up.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if there's just a couple in the bottom, does it?
That's pretty much it then.
And then it should start to clear.
Yeah, you need to give it a few minutes really, and it will start to clear from the bottom up, I think.
So while we're waiting for that to clear, we'll show you some that we made earlier, and we just poured it into this spray bottle, and then this is how clear it goes.
So
sometimes there'll be
clear.
sometimes there'll be a few flakes left in the bottom if it's like really optimum sort of dilution, but then you just spray it and give it a rub in. Feels a little bit slimy. You can spray it on your arms and just leave it on for about 15-20 minutes. You can actually, if it absorbs in okay, you can just leave it on. There's no harm in that, but I find it a little bit slimy, so you can just wash it off after 15 or 20 minutes or shower it off. I know some people who just spray it in their drinking water as well. Just 1 or 2 sprays just for, you know, added thing. So if you're going to use this every day, what we'd suggest is putting it on your arms the one day, on your body the next day, on your legs the next day, and just keep rotating, because it can cause a little bit of irritation, especially if you're using the optimum strength. And if you do find it gives you a bit of irritation, then just dilute it a little bit more. And just keep diluting until you don't get any more in irritation. But
you can see actually now You probably
Yeah,
see
it's
on there
starting to
that it
clear
is
now.
starting to clear, but it will basically go clear like
Yeah.
that.
It just looks a little bit thicker than water. And then by rotating the parts of your body that you're putting it on, then you're sort of preventing any sort of
I don't know, I think you just smother it all over as much as of your body
well,
that
if
you've
it
got
doesn't
exposed.
irritate, you can, yeah.
Yeah.
But just when you start, you know, you don't want to be covered from head to toe in irritation if it's going to react with you. But it's not that often that it does, though.
No.
It's only if you've got very sensitive skin. Or if you've got like eczema or something, you know, it might sort of sting that a bit. So maybe keep away from that in the first instance until you get used to it. Okay, so when you consider that tub, that kilo, is costing about £7.50, and we've used probably about a tenth of it, give or take, you know, to make this, which would probably just about fill this, more or less. This is 250ml, so you're going to make around 8 to 10 bottles, 250ml bottles for £7.50.
And
That's like less than £1 a bottle.
That should last weeks.
And
so.
you know, I've seen this being sold by other places. Well, 100ml bottle being sold by other places for £20 and upwards, and I just don't understand. This is so cheap and so easy. So don't waste your money.
And the other thing you can use instead of just plain water is like rose water or something like that.
Yeah, I use
That's excellent.
I use rose water for my nan because she likes the rose smell. It makes her skin smell nice. So yeah, well. Any floral water would be nice. You know, I've heard of people using this as a deodorant as well, a natural deodorant, but I haven't tried it myself. I use the deodorant stone with rose water, but you know, that might be worth a try. I might try that.
Okay. You can see how clear that is now.
Yeah, there's just a few flakes in the bottom.
Flakes.
But you could leave those there if you know, or put more water in. That's fine. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, and we hope you learnt a lot, and we hope that it helps you and helps resolve any health conditions that you may have.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again soon.